Hello, lovelies. I am sorry I have been gone for so long. I got sick in May and haven't felt myself since. And I was too sick to read most of the time, let alone speak. And I basically laid in bed sleeping and watching YouTubes. And I'll share some of that stuff with you because there was some really good stuff in there sooner or later. But the other day, a book jumped off the shelf at me. It was one we'd had in the library for a very long time. It's called The Science of the Initiates by A. Server. A. Server, I'm guessing, is not the author's real name, but more of a role. Someone who is in service to humanity, I suspect. Little bit mysterious, eh? But what was really weird about this book is, yes, it's an old book. So I thought maybe I could find a PDF to send to a friend, as the wisdom in it is just, wow, incredibly powerful. And guess what? As far as Google's concerned, anyway, this book does not even exist. There is no PDF or not even available on Amazon in print. That's a bit crazy, right? I don't think I've ever had that happen before. In one sense, it doesn't surprise me really at all because of that do no evil thing by Google seems to have gone by the wayside. I'm not saying the book doesn't exist. I'm just saying that Google's not telling you about it or telling me about it. But anyway, regardless, I've taken it upon myself to keep the wisdom of this book alive. So I'm going to be reading you a little bit from the first pages and we'll work our way through it because, as I said, it's amazing. But we're just going to start with the first pages because I picked up the first pages and we're like, whoa, dude, this is so perfectly synchronous for me anyway. So hopefully it'll be at least relevant to you. But anyway, the other thing, and kind of why I'm presenting it to you, is because I have been thinking a lot about our beliefs. And there's a lot in this book that's really hard to believe. And so we'll just kind of use this as a teachable moment. And I don't know if we're going to get to beliefs today, but it's kind of the core of our challenge is how to navigate in this world given our current belief systems. And it's kind of the reason I think that this book might have got disappeared is not because, I don't know, it's fake. It's because it's got truth. It is really interesting because it validates some of the stuff that Chance, Brad, and Gary found in Magical Egypt Season 2 and 3. And it's really interesting because it kind of goes to the heart of the matter of what I'm talking about in my podcast. So it's a perfect reminder, and the bonus is it appears to have disappeared, which means it's now truly occulted knowledge. Love it. This book, The Science of the Initiates, takes the form of a conversation. So let's start off with the very first question. What is the sacred science? It is a complete body of knowledge on the hidden nature of man, the worlds in which he lives, and the cosmos of which he is part. Next question. What is the aim and method of this sacred science? Wisdom derived through cognition and realization. So, cognition is defined as the process of acquiring knowledge and understanding through thought, experience, and the senses. So not book learning, for example, okay? Stuff we've actually experienced ourselves and thought about and sucked the knowledge out of that experience. Realization is the act of becoming fully aware of something as a fact, right? That boom moment. Boom. And that's really pretty hard these days in our post-truth world, isn't it? I guess this is why we are talking about facts we are learning experientially through first-person experience and not stuff we're reading in the news or the mass media or social media or whatever. Okay, so back to the book. How is this achieved? By the augmentation of man's ordinary power of cognition, achieved through the awakening of latent centers within man and the creation of new centers. Now, let me stop here for a moment. First, I want to draw your attention to the blog of Thomas Joseph Brown. He is doing some absolutely fantastic work on Goethe's process for doing just this. So I'll pop a link below and you can check it out because it is next level stuff, absolutely. But I don't want to overlook this prime bitsy. Quote, the augmentation of man's ordinary powers of cognition achieved through the awakening of latent centers within man and the creation of new centers, unquote. That's where things get a bit, interesting. In fact, in season 2 and 3 of Magical Egypt, the whole idea or the concept of enhancing human cognitive abilities through augmentation was the very thing that sparked this huge excitement among the boys, Gary, Brad, and Chance. When they discovered encoded information in the archaeological record that pointed to these dormant centers and the methods of how to awaken them, they were thrilled, right? They were like blown away because the ancients seemed to have the knowledge that we lack, that they had knowledge of this potential, and even more importantly, they seemed to know how to work with them. There were instructions, right? And being creatives and artists, the ability to access inspiration, or the muse, like as Brad likes to call it, is of great value to them personally. And this is why Chance calls Ancient Egypt a magical book. He believes that whatever you really want to find, he believes you'll find there what you desire if only you look closely enough. And that's what these creatives did. They looked in ancient Egypt and they found their desire, the ability to expand their consciousness, which is cool for them. Now, I must admit, when I first heard about it, it seemed unimaginable to me, right? Hard to believe that such a possibility could even exist. I mean, when I look at myself and I think about the levels of consciousness that I've experienced, I have had cognition of being awake, of being asleep, of being drunk, stoned, tripped out, and under anesthesia. Now, I've also had moments of the hypnagogic state, and to be frank, it's where a lot of my best ideas come from. Like, I wake up with my ideas, but I have absolutely no control over it whatsoever. It's like a gift. And having on-demand access or control, I think this is what the promise is here. But anyway, now let's get clear. We're not talking about some Elon Musk chip in the head type of augmentation. We're talking about a natural process where our God-given, let's call them psychic organs of suprasensible perception, come online through practices that we can take within the course of our day, month, lifetime, to bring these powers online, to turn us into a natural kind of Superman. I mean, that's pretty amazing when you stop and think about it. And I think all of us have a sense of it. For example, I heard a voice as clear as day telling me to not move once I had my car accident. Little did I know that I had a broken neck at the time, and had I moved, I would have been a quadriplegic. That's pretty amazing. I wish it's something that I could do all the time. But I think this is an example of the ability to obtain information from the other worlds, from this natural augmentation of our currently offline, yet available to us, organs of perception. Through my research, and you might have heard me talk about it before, there's evidence that people were able to perceive things at the subatomic level. Remember my story about Annie Pizard and Charles Ledbetter and their occult chemistry, for example. Now, Ingo Swann talks about lucidity, where he was able to see inside his own body. In addition, quite frankly, to remote view things all over the world, not to mention my favorite, his ability to see the human sexual regalia, as he calls it, the energized kind of libido energies. He can see those, and I've devoted several episodes to those. And they're crazy, right? Really, the only thing that makes these experiences believable at all is that they've been scientifically validated, sometimes decades after the fact. But I'm getting off track, so let's continue with the book. In modern physical, I'm going to add that word so we know what we're talking about. In modern physical scientific terms, the soul life is generally described as the sum of all the qualities or the totality of the psychic nature of man. It is, of course, bound up with bodily organs and expressly the nervous system. In the science of the initiates, by contrast, I'm adding that, the soul life is wholly a thing apart and independent of the body. Through the exercise of power of the soul, latent centers or forces are brought into activity, and through this activity, a new center is created in man's inner universe, as Goethe calls it, which, as the eye of the soul, enables him to explore the supersensible world. So right off, we see the language used by Rudolf Steiner, and they are mentioning Goethe. A server is mentioning a Goethe. More clues to who this mysterious a server might be. And again, it validates magical Egypt. So how on fire are we? And now you can understand why I'm excited about this book. Anyway, we shall continue. How is it achieved? Okay, we're talking about the science of the initiates again. By augmentation of man's ordinary powers of cognition, achieved through the awakening of latent centers within man and the creation of new centers. Now, if we have time, I'll get to the awakening part that we found in Magical Egypt, if not next time. Back to the book. What is the aim and method of physical science? I will add in contrast to that of spiritual science. So we're talking about physical science, and the answer here is knowledge derived through observation and experiment, through the discovery and use of instruments outside of man. The questioner asks the author to amplify his statement. By this technique, the modern scientist cannot escape through the ring pass not of the five senses and the process of logic. The marvelous instruments of our scientific age simply widen the area of his observations, makes his powers of research more disciplined, and his analysis and conclusions more integrated with the ring pass not. He, however, still operates on the usual level of consciousness, whether he observes a galactic universe with a high-powered telescope or the universe of the infinitesimally small with the revealing of the microscope. By the very nature of our mental processes and the mechanisms of our five senses, we are bound to the ring pass not, as Ixion is bound to the wheel. The escape through the ring pass not demands another mode of cognition. Now, ring pass not, I had never heard that before, and I kind of got the sense of it's like a blockage of some sort. And it's an interesting term, is it not? But when I Googled it, it gives us even more clues about the influences on our mysterious A server, as it is one of the many occult terms found in Blavatsky's The Secret Doctrine. In his occult glossary, Puraka provides a definition that kind of only deepens the mystery, and that is a profoundly mystical and suggestive term signifying the circle or bounds of frontiers within which is contained the consciousness of those who are still under the sway of the delusion of separateness. And this applies whether the ring pass not be large or small. It does not signify any one special occasion or condition, but in general terms applies to any state in which an entity, having reached a certain stage of evolutionary growth of the unfolding of consciousness, finds itself unable to pass into a still higher state because of some delusion under which the consciousness is laboring, be that delusion mental or spiritual. Paraka, I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, goes on to explain that although the phenomenon of the ring pass not applies to globes, planets, planetary chains, solar systems, and so forth, the main point is to remember that it pertains in some mysterious way to the phases or states of consciousness. So it's not just our consciousness, human consciousness, it's all consciousness. So we're looking at a more animistic approach here, that everything has a consciousness that is flowering or attempting to flower, and it can get stuck. I had the most delicious discussion with Rupert Sheldrake about the sun being conscious as an example. But let's get back to the book. Let us have the core of the matter, the questioner asks. In the former, which is sacred science, we posit the idea that there are states of consciousness beyond ordinary waking consciousness and the processes of logic. In the latter, physical science, that all the knowledge we possess and may possess in the future comes to us only through the five senses, and that all other so-called states of consciousness are only pathological conditions and have no cognitive value whatsoever. What is your comment? The questioner asks. I think he's like, what is your bottom line? The answerer, a server, says, 1. The ordinary field of consciousness is only one level of consciousness. 2. The so-called pathological states of consciousness are such only because they have been studied neither in their fullness nor variety of manifestation. The attention of the investigators has been focused almost wholly on the subnormal states of their behavior patterns. No serious effort has been made to account for subliminal states. 3. Genius, the phenomenon of the overworld of poets, idealists, artists, musicians, inventors, etc., remains an unexplored upland, except for some feeble efforts to rationalize its achievements. And 4, the phenomenon of telepathy encountered everywhere by trained investigators in cyclical research is still beggared by academic scientists because of the absence of any understanding of the laws which govern the process. Questioner asks, define then the physical scientist. The physical scientist is he who observes and measures the appearance of the phenomenal world and from his data draws conclusions as to the nature of the causes. He deals, therefore, only with the form side of manifestation. The questioner says, similarly, describe the initiate of the sacred science. He who deals with the causes behind phenomena, studies and learns to wield the laws in all worlds of form, and coordinate them in one essential unity or cause. Also, we can see that in this book, they have a very ancient Egyptian approach to the understanding of reality, in that the initiates here are being pointed or guided towards being more concerned with what is behind the phenomena, the noumena, the numinous. And that is really the core of the ancient Egyptian mindset. What may we say of the present position of the physical sciences? Answer. They are knowledge in a Britannica of the proper properties of matter, rather than an understanding of the nature of nature. With what result? Like the men in Plato's allegory, the physical science observes only the shadows dancing on the wall and becomes so hypnotized in viewing them as inferences of the real world, they forget to draw the one inference. They are only shadows. How do we experience reality, then? Reality has been defined by a modern thinker as that which can be acted out in all circumstances of life, if life is to have values. The initiate philosopher, by contrast, would say reality is the noumenum, of which all else is phenomenon, and that we experience reality as we enter into the noumenal through direct realization. So let me summarize this first 2 pages. The sacred science encompasses a comprehensive understanding of the hidden aspects of human nature and the interconnectedness of various worlds within the cosmic framework. Its aim is to attain wisdom through cognition and realization, achieved by awakening these latent centers within individuals and creating new centers. Unlike modern scientific approaches which rely on observation and experimentation using external instruments, the sacred science acknowledges the independent existence of the soul life, separate from the body, and explores the supersensible world through the activation of latent forces and the creation of new centers. Physical science, in contrast, focuses on knowledge derived, as I said, from observation and experimentation using external instruments that expand the range of observation but remain limited to the realm of five senses and logical processes. The escape from these limitations requires a different mode of cognition. The sacred science recognizes that ordinary consciousness is just one level of consciousness, and it emphasizes the importance of exploring states beyond ordinary waking consciousness. The phenomenon of genius remains largely unexplored in science, while telepathy lacks comprehensive understanding due to the absence of knowledge regarding the governing laws. Physical science deals with the form side of manifestation, where initiates of the sacred science study the causes behind phenomena and learn to utilize the laws across all realms of form, uniting them in essential unity. Currently, physical sciences possess knowledge of the properties of matter without a deeper understanding of the nature of nature itself, leading to an emphasis on shadows rather than true reality. The initiate philosopher views reality as the noumenon, with all else being phenomenon, and suggests that direct realization is the pathway to experiencing reality. Now that's a lot, right? I'm not even sure that helped. But anyway, I just really want to pause for a moment and point to the fact that, again, that this is literally what the boys found in season 2 and 3. That's really cool to me. That there are realms of consciousness that we can access through the proper activation of our birthright, as Chance calls it, or our supersensible organs of perception, as Steiner calls it. Okay, so let's think about this for a minute then. Let's say we're augmented by an Elon Musk brain chip. What does that actually do for us? That enables us to access all of the information that has been collected and put on the internet, essentially, or into databases, right, which is on the internet, so that we could have access to things like knowledge on how to build technology, or how to garden, or how to speak a different language, possibly. Maybe even in the future we can just speak a different language because of this chip in our brain. But at the end of the day, is it not a closed loop system? Sure, we can have the advantage of tapping into the inspiration of prior humans, and maybe that would indeed inspire us. But what about actual inspiration? What about actual epiphany? Would Elon Musk's brain chip enable us to tap into the realms, the invisible universe, from which these epiphanies come from? When you look at the great inventors and the stories that they tell about where they got their great insights, yes, they do talk about dwelling on problems from probably theirs or other people's information. But at the end of the day, what they remark upon is how a stroke of insight comes to them during a dream or through the hypnagogic state. These things come out of nowhere manifest, nowhere material. These are the gifts of the immaterial. If I'd had Elon Musk brain chip, I wonder if it would have delivered a message to me that said, do not move. Maybe it's smart enough. Maybe it would have realized that there was a really big accident somehow. I don't know, and put two and two together and come up with the most logical helpful piece of information. That's a possibility. But maybe it wouldn't have. Maybe I would be a quadriplegic had the voice from nowhere material not reached out to me. I'm thinking a lot about AI, as a lot of people are at the moment. And, I don't know if I'm doom or gloom about it. I don't know if I really think of it more than a tool that has access to all of human thought through the ages. Now, what's really interesting about human thought throughout the ages is that there is indeed a portion of that information, for example, Jung or Tolkien, where they have dug content out of the liminal states and brought them to us in written form. And so, of course, AI is going to have access to information itself that comes from or has come from the liminal. But can it access the liminal directly? I don't think so. So what would this mean for us as humanity to be augmented by an Elon Musk chip? Does this mean that our minds would even be busier than they are now, reducing the possibility that we would be open to true epiphanies, insights, the voice of the muse? Would it mean that, I think it would certainly mean we would be less inclined to go through the rigors of awakening our supersensible organs of perception, as we may be more than happy with a diet of Coca-Cola and all the sweetness and not even realize that we are missing the natural sweetness of orange juice, for example. And let's face it, if Elon's chip did the very same thing to us as the Google algorithm has done to this book, then possibly all ideas of this kind, the idea that we naturally can augment ourselves into superhuman beings, would be censored from inside of our very own heads. I mean, with the censorship going the way that it is, it's not beyond belief. In fact, that's something that I believe would be very likely to happen. I think I'm going to stick with the orange juice instead of the Coca-Cola. But the idea of having these organs of perception come online for me even more than they are right now, which is very exciting to me. And I hope it is for you too, my lovelies. But herein lies the problem. When I read this book 20 years ago, before season 2, season 3, and mostly my own research for season 4, this was all not quite gibberish, but it was just words to me. I didn't believe it. I didn't believe it at all. It was a nice story. And look, even for those lucky enough to have some awakening in this area, there's a tendency to rationalize it away, consider it a fluke, or if you are in realization of it, then you might just decide to hide it, because if you let it all hang out, you might be considered mad. I mean, I know several people myself that have been committed for having their organs of perception come online. And these are the most sane people I know. And so in one respect, the whole point of reading this to you, this kind of unbelievable idea that we have the power to increase our consciousness, our perception, and extend it into the microscopic world and the macroscopic world, to other worlds, to inside of our bodies, to be able to glean gnosis through cognition and realization, especially because of the way that we've been taught at school, seems unbelievable. And so all of this, as amazing it is, is a lead up to, I guess it's going to be my next talk, right? Which will be about beliefs. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this has given you some kind of food for thought. And I'm really sorry my voice is so crap and so weak. It's just a mirror of how I am at the moment. And this too shall pass. So thank you for listening, lovelies. And thank you for the lovely comments when I was even more sick. They meant a lot to me. And I took a lot of your advice. And that's probably why I am feeling better. So thank you again, and more soon. Thank you for listening, lovelies, and I want to tell you about the Magical Egypt Summit that is coming up in September. At the Magical Egypt Summit, we are going operative. We are dedicated to pushing the boundaries of what we think is possible. We invite you to join us on this exciting journey as we explore new ways of thinking and being, and challenge our preconceptions about ancient Egypt and the modern world around us. Our lineup of speakers and thought leaders is unparalleled, with experts from a diverse range of fields coming together to share their insights and knowledge. From neuroscience to spirituality, from cutting-edge technology to ancient wisdom, we'll be exploring the latest breakthroughs and the deepest mysteries of the human experience. We invite you to actively participate, sharing your thoughts, posing questions, and immersing yourself in the profound wisdom of these exceptional minds. It is full of all my favorite people talking about fascinating subjects. So I invite you to come, and I hope you're excited as I am. You can find out more at magicalegypt.com.